gonna be okay, sweetheart. We're here together now.
Yeah, we're a family. We'll figure this out.
The moment everything changed, the diner's fluorescent lights cast a cold glow across the worn vinyl booths, their once vibrant teal now faded to a tired aquamarine. Sarah Chen gripped her daughter Emma's small hand, feeling the weight of every decision that had led them to this roadside restaurant on a Thursday afternoon, when most children Emma's age were in school, when most mothers weren't counting quarters to afford a single order of fries to split. Emma had been so good all morning, through the bus ride to the social services office, through the 2-hour wait only to be told they needed additional documentation, through Sarah's barely contained tears in the bathroom afterward. At 6 years old, Emma had learned a patience that broke Sarah's heart, the kind of stillness that came from understanding, without anyone having to explain that money was tight and complaints made things harder. "Can we go now, Mama?" Emma whispered, tugging gently at Sarah's sleeve. Sarah nodded, gathering their single shared jacket from the booth. They'd ordered one hot chocolate an hour ago, nursed it until the waitress's pointed glances made it clear they'd overstayed their welcome. The 20-minute warmth of the diner had been worth the $3. $3 that could have bought pasta for 2 dinners, but Emma's lips had been blue from waiting at the bus stop, and sometimes being a good mother meant choosing your child's immediate comfort over tomorrow's practical needs. As Sarah stood, smoothing down her cardigan, the gray one she'd owned since college, before everything fell apart, she noticed Emma had stopped moving. Her daughter's gaze was fixed on something across the aisle, her brown eyes wide with an expression Sarah had learned to dread. Hunger mixed with longing, restrained by the knowledge that wanting something didn't mean you could have it. Following Emma's line of sight, Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks. The man in the corner booth, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than 3 months of their rent, sat before a spread that seemed obscene in its abundance. A towering burger with all the fixings, golden fries piled high, onion rings, a chocolate milkshake, and what appeared to be a slice of cherry pie waiting on the side. He was eating slowly, methodically, his attention focused on the documents spread across his table, apparently unaware that his lunch was a feast in a world where some people rationed single hot chocolates. "Emma, come on," Sarah whispered urgently, her voice tight with embarrassment. But Emma didn't move. She wasn't staring with the demanding entitlement of a spoiled child. There was something else in her expression. A quiet observation, a mathematical assessment. Sarah knew that look. Emma was calculating how many meals that plate represented, how many days they could eat if they had food like that. "Emma." Sarah's voice came out sharper than she intended, born from the shame of their circumstances being so visible, so obvious. The man looked up. For a moment their eyes met. Sarah's defiant and defensive, his unreadable behind dark-rimmed glasses. He was younger than she'd initially thought. Perhaps in his mid-30s, with the kind of composed bearing that came from never having worried about things like whether you could afford both electricity and groceries in the same week. Sarah's grip tightened on Emma's hand. "We're leaving." "I'm sorry, Mama," Emma said softly, allowing herself to be pulled toward the door. "I wasn't going to ask. I was just looking." Those words, "I wasn't going to ask," landed like a punch to Sarah's gut. When had her daughter learned to apologize for simply looking at food? "Excuse me," the man's voice cut through the diner's ambient noise, the clatter of dishes, the murmur of other conversations, the vintage jukebox playing something from the 50s. Sarah froze, her hand on the door. She didn't turn around. She couldn't, if he was going to say something cruel. Something about teaching her child manners or not letting her stare at strangers. She couldn't bear to face him while he said it. "I seem to have over-ordered," he continued, and there was something in his tone, not pity, but something gentler, more careful. "I have a business call starting in 5 minutes, and I hate wasting food. Would you possibly be willing to take this off my hands? I'd hate for it to go to waste." Sarah turned slowly. The man was standing now, and she realized he was tall, with the kind of presence that commanded rooms, boardrooms probably, corner offices with views of city skylines, but his expression held no judgment, no superiority. If anything, he looked almost uncertain. "We're fine," Sarah said automatically, the pride that had kept her going through countless humiliations rising up like armor. "Thank you, Mama," Emma said quietly, and Sarah heard in that single word all the meals they'd skipped, all the times her daughter had said she wasn't hungry when Sarah knew she was, all the nights Emma had gone to bed early, because sleep was easier than being awake with an empty stomach. The man seemed to sense Sarah's internal struggle. "I apologize if I've offended you," he said, his voice low enough that the other diners couldn't hear. "I know how it might seem, but I genuinely did overorder. I do it every time I'm nervous before a call, and I noticed your daughter, and I—" He paused, something flickering across his face. "I have a niece about her age, and I just thought if it were her, I'd hope someone would, well—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Sarah looked down at Emma, whose eyes were still fixed on that plate of food, trying so hard to be good, to not want things, to not be a burden. And Sarah realized that sometimes love meant swallowing your pride. Sometimes being a good mother meant accepting help, even when everything in you screamed against it. "That's very kind of you," Sarah said quietly, the words feeling like glass in her throat. The man's shoulders relaxed slightly. "Please, sit. I'll have the waitress bring it over. I really do have to take this call." He gestured to his phone, which was indeed lighting up with an incoming video call. "And I meant what I said. I hate waste." He was giving her an out, Sarah realized. A way to accept without feeling like charity, without the weight of obligation. She didn't know if that made it better or worse. Sarah guided Emma back to their booth, and within moments the waitress, the same one who'd been giving them pointed looks, appeared with the plates, her expression now neutral, professional. The man had already stepped outside, phone to his ear, visible through the large windows as he paced, deep in conversation. Emma looked up at Sarah, seeking permission. Sarah nodded, and her daughter reached for a French fry with trembling fingers, eating it slowly, savoring it in a way that no child should have to savor a simple French fry. "Is it okay, Mama?" Emma asked between bites. "We're not taking something we shouldn't." "It's okay, baby," Sarah said, her throat tight. The man was very generous. "We should be grateful." As Emma ate, taking small bites, making it last, already trying to save some for later, Sarah watched the man through the window. He was gesturing as he spoke, animated but controlled, clearly discussing something important. She wondered what kind of business calls happened in roadside diners on Thursday afternoons. She wondered what his story was, what had brought him to this particular place at this particular time. When Emma had eaten half the burger and a portion of the fries, she stopped. "Can we save the rest, Mama, for dinner?" Sarah nodded, fighting back tears, and asked the waitress for containers. As they packed up the remaining food, still more than they'd seen in days, the man returned, sliding back into his booth and immediately beginning to pack up his papers. Sarah stood, walked over to him before she could second guess herself. "Thank you," she said simply, not trusting herself to say more. He looked up, and she saw something in his eyes, recognition maybe, or understanding. "No thanks necessary," he said. Then, reaching into his wallet, he pulled out a business card. "I run a foundation. We help families in transition, job training, resume building, childcare assistance, temporary housing support. If you're interested, there's no obligation, but the resources are there if you need them." Sarah took the card, her hands shaking slightly. "Why?" she asked, the question escaping before she could stop it. "Why help us?" The man was quiet for a moment, his gaze distant. "Because someone helped me once," he said finally, "when I needed it most, when I was young and hungry and trying to take care of my sister. Someone saw us, really saw us, and helped. And they told me, don't pay me back, pay it forward. So that's what I'm doing." Sarah looked at the card. Marcus Chen, it read, Foundation Director. The address was in the city, about 40 miles away. "Chen," she said, looking up at him. He smiled slightly. "Common name, my last name too," Sarah said. "Then maybe it's meant to be," he said, standing and extending his hand. "Good luck, Sarah." She hadn't told him her name, she realized, then remembered the waitress had used it when she'd brought their hot chocolate earlier. She shook his hand, feeling the warmth of it, the firm confidence. As Marcus Chen walked out of the diner, got into a sleek black car and drove away, Sarah returned to Emma, who was holding the takeout containers like treasure. "Was that man an angel, Mama?" Emma asked seriously. Sarah smiled, the first real smile she'd managed in weeks. "No, baby, just a person who remembered what it was like to struggle. And that might be even better." That night, in their small apartment, As Emma ate reheated French fries and half a burger for dinner, talking excitedly about her day, more animated than she'd been in months, Sarah looked at the business card on their scratched kitchen table. Tomorrow, she decided, tomorrow she would call. Tomorrow she would accept that sometimes the bravest thing you could do wasn't to keep struggling alone, but to reach out and accept help when it was offered. Because sometimes the moments that change everything happen quietly, in faded diners with worn vinyl booths, when someone notices, really notices, and chooses to act with kindness instead of indifference. And sometimes that's enough to begin again.